Namaste. Usually I don't make videos in the evening. I preferred the evening hours for puja, meditation, and contemplation. But since I'm in the mood, one of our viewers, I think is Externality, he wrote a long comment about his experience in meditation. And mine is very similar. But I don't need to wonder about the meaning of it. I know the meaning of it. And I know that from my experience too. So he replied, I replied with a quote from Ramana Maharshi, and he replied something about speaking from personal experience. Well, I have a policy that goes back longer, actually, than this channel is in existence, to my previous channel about the esoteric teaching, which is that I don't speak about anything or post anything unless it's part of my personal experience. In other words, this isn't about theory. It's not about doctrine. It's not about philosophy, actually. It's about experience, about practice. The call to prayer. So, it's said that an enlightened person knows in advance of when they're going to leave the body and even how they're going to leave the body. Well, I have been feeling since about the time I took sannyas, which I think was last October. I have a feeling that my time here is at an end, close to being at an end anyway. We'll see. But in any case, I feel like it's a good opportunity now to look back and reminisce a little bit about my life, because I haven't really shared very much on a personal level. Mostly I've been talking about things that I feel would be beneficial for you. But I guess there comes a time when it's appropriate to try to sum up my life experience. And I have to say, to put it all in one sentence, it's been tough, but it's been worth it. Why has it been tough? Because this was not an easy life. This was not a cakewalk. This was not a red carpet ride. This was hard, difficult, and almost always strongly opposed work. Focused on one thing: getting enlightenment, getting spiritual realization, getting moksha. Now, I didn't know this when I started out. I just knew that the average person, the average way of life, the average knowledge and opinions that were around me were completely unpalatable and unacceptable to me. I wanted something more, and not necessarily in quantity, but in quality of life, of experience, of knowledge, and so forth. So I set that as my goal. I set a very high goal, and I worked for it. This is all in my chart. I finally ran across a good astrologer, a really good astrologer, about 3.5 years ago. And he confirmed many of these things that were just feelings or intuitions for me. I mean, I know a little bit about astrology. I know enough that I was doing charts professionally for a while. But I couldn't bear to look at people's charts and see how unfortunate they were, how they really had no chance for enlightenment in this lifetime. And it was my experience, too, with teaching, that the people who came to me to be taught were not ready to receive what I had to give. It went right over their heads. So what to do? I dropped the idea of teaching. I dropped the idea of being a guru. I know this is all unsystematic and mixed up, but that's all right, because it's not about a linear history. It's about how I feel about things. And feelings, you know how they are. They're all nonlinear and mixed up. So how do I feel about my life? I feel it was worth it. It was worth it. I have the usual regrets that people have at the end of life, that I wish I could have had more fun. I had a lot of fun, actually. But most of it was very serious fun. You know, deep studies of the Vedas and Sanskrit, and very arcane rituals in Tantra and Bhakti, and deep meditation in lonely places, in the mountains, in forest monasteries and like that. So it's not the kind of fun that most people associate with the word. But the kind of fun I'm talking about is just, you know, innocent, playful fun. Or my kind of fun, which maybe isn't so innocent. But I wish I could have had more of it. I got a little taste of it, just enough to know that that's really the kind of fun I wanted. Extreme Tantra, oh yeah. And like that. And I wish there had been more love in my life. I wish I had met more people that I felt safe about being in love with. But, you know, gosh darn it, the quality of people that I met in my life were just, I mean, not worth it. It was dangerous. They had agendas. They had conflicting desires. They weren't like me. They weren't totally dedicated to the path. They would have been major distractions. And even the people that I did love, and I loved deeply, with full commitment, even they basically betrayed me. And I had to spend a long time healing. At this point, I'm done with that. I'm done with so much about life. That's another reason I feel like, you know, maybe it's my point to time to graduate. Because I just feel so done with everything. Making money, being somebody, you know, an important person in some field or in some group, or starting a big organization or something like that. It has no attraction for me at all. I'm very content to live as a hermit. In fact, anytime I contemplate living in any other way, I get the willies. I'm like, oh no, I couldn't do that again. I'm not up for it. So maybe what I've learned in this life is that if I really want liberation, if I really want to graduate from the school of samsara, I have to leave with all accounts settled, with all debts paid, with no unfulfilled karma. So, of course, that means fully accepting whatever destiny I have. And I have pretty much in the past. And I wish I had more people that I could have loved. And I also wish that the people that I loved had loved me back. But they didn't really. Instead, they were kind of disinterested and kind of distracted and kind of still caught up in their previous relationships and commitments and stuff. And then I felt like they weren't really fully available for love. That there was a substantial part of them that was already taken up with other things. I'll give you one example. This one woman approached me for Tantra. This was way back in Georgia, I don't know, 25 years ago or something. And okay, so I opened up my energy to her, right? And within 3 days, she was so overwhelmed that she had to back way off and make all kinds of excuses why she had to look after her business and this and that and stuff. And I come to find out she had this big plan of buying a house. And so she had to save money and all this stuff. But see, that meant she wasn't fully available for love. So, after that, I've had 1 or 2 relationships, but I never could, again, release my total energy because I couldn't find anybody big enough, strong enough, and available enough to receive it. And the same goes for spiritual teaching. The people who came to me for spiritual teaching were either stuck in some other part of their lives or in trouble and trying to run away from it, or they had some fixed idea in their head about what spiritual life was all about. And they were committed to some teacher or some book or some method, and they weren't really completely open. Their cup was not empty. So how could they receive everything I had to give? And maybe that's my major flaw, is that I'm not very patient. I'm like, you're coming now. You're ready now. I'm ready. I'm available. I've kept myself unloaded, uncommitted, to have myself totally available. But other people are not. This is what I've learned over a long lifetime of failed relationships. That what I have to give is too big for most people to accept. So, okay. At that point, I lose interest. Not that I lose the desire to be in relationship or to love or be loved, but I lose interest in partial things, incomplete relationships. If I'm going to get into a relationship, it has to be like 150%. So I feel like that's kind of over. Like I'm really over it. Like at this stage of my life, anyway, what chances do I have, Should I start dating at 72? It's crazy, huh? But what I feel is that, well, okay, since I'm speaking totally honestly from my point of view, that I attained enlightenment in 1984. And after that, it took me more than 30 years to understand it. I'm one of these people, When I was a kid, I used to take things like radios and televisions and bicycles and stuff apart just to see how they worked. Most of the time, I could get them back together again. And they still worked. Later on, I was a field service tech for HP in data acquisition systems. And some of these were pretty hairy technology for the day. So yeah, I like to take things apart. I like to fix things. I like to know how they work. So when enlightenment happened to me, I can't say I did it. I can say I made myself available for it. Then I had to understand, how did this happen? How does this stuff work? What is this? What's the theory behind it? Because I had no training beyond dualistic religion and sectarian bhakti. So it took 30 years and a lot of rough spots, having to give up old conditioning, old habits, old views and ways of looking at things. So really the last 30 years has been about trying to understand my experience in 1984 and trying to understand who I am, what I am. And really the bottom line, the conclusion that I've come to is that I don't know. More than that, I can't know, because knowledge is of the mind. Knowledge is built up of interlocking definitions of categories and their opposites. Good, bad, black, white, right, wrong, etc. And enlightenment is beyond all of that. It's non-dual. It can't be known. It can't be explained. I'm going to start sounding like Krishnamurti here. But it's true. Enlightenment is beyond the known. Not only that, it's beyond the knowable. So that's why the Buddha was apophatic. That's why enlightenment is anti-fragile. That's why it benefits from all these wild, unpredictable changes in the world. Because you see, no matter how much things change, one thing stays the same, and that is the self. But to see that, you have to be the self. And that really, when it comes down to it, it's not something that anybody can do to you. But it's something that, it's a viewpoint that you assume. Huh? Just like nobody ever elects a really powerful leader. Really powerful leaders assume power. In the same way, nobody can ever make you enlightened. But enlightenment is something that you can assume. And that's all I can say about it. Yes, there are many methods, many approaches, many schools, many philosophies. It's very complicated. It's bewildering, in fact. And the whole seeker complex. But really, all the work involved in seeking enlightenment is getting rid of stuff. Neti. It's not this, it's not that, it's not the other things. And bringing it down to the real essence. So in that way, I've been very successful. And the chief aim of my life was accomplished actually a long time ago, 34 years ago, almost to the day. So I feel now, looking back on it all, that not only I accomplished my aim, but I did the extra credit course. I understood it properly. And I tried my best to share it with others. Unfortunately, nobody seems able to receive it. What can I do? It's not my problem. You have to make yourself available. And if you do, it will come to you. And that's really the story of my life. Om Tat Sat. Aum Harihi Aum.